Hi to Andrea. Yeah, I realized that I guess the audience is muted, but hello from Spain. Wow, that's far.
Interesting. Okay, I think we'll get started. Welcome everyone to part 2 of the Accessibility in Post-Secondary Education webinar, presented to you by the Child Young Adults Network and the Voices Teen Outreach Program. My name is Keegan Knoxall, and I am a board member of the Young Adults Network, and I'm happy to be here today. Quickly, we'll just go over some accessibility features available in this webinar for you. We have closed captioning available.
Yeah.
Closed captioning is available if you choose the option to the right, to the far right side of the bottom of your screen. You click on that, and closed captioning should appear. I will get started with introducing our speakers this afternoon. First of all, Laura Girardo, who is currently completing her Bachelor's of Education degree at Queen's University and is on her way to becoming a teacher of the deaf. She is very passionate about education and school and has completed her master's degree at York University, as well as an undergraduate degree at Ryerson University. And she has been an ambassador for her local hearing center at the York Catholic District School Board, where she has held numerous talks about her journey as a deaf and hard of hearing student. She is also a part of Voices Top committee and is looking forward to helping with self-advocacy. And this is important because this is where she gained her confidence and self-independence. She hopes to inspire deaf students to dream big. Up next, we have Karina Cotran.
Hello.
She works in the field of communications and is also a published author, having published a book about a collection of short stories about growing up with hearing loss. She is also a blogger, which is a Hearing Differently blog, which shared a bunch of short stories and opinions and whatnot about hearing loss, which is valuable to other people with hearing loss, and as well as teachers and professionals. She also serves on the board of directors for Voices Deaf and Hard of Hearing Children, and has served as the director of the Teen Outreach Program. If you have any questions throughout this webinar, please feel free to use the question and answer box. We will try to answer as many as we can throughout the webinar. There is a 15-minute section at the end of the webinar to answer those questions. If you're having any technical difficulties, I believe you can also use the chat function to ask any questions that you may have. And I think I'll hand it over to you guys.
Okay, so let's get started. So a quick overview of the agenda. This is part 2 of accessibility in post-secondary. And I believe we can send over a link to part 1. I think it's at the end of this PowerPoint. I could be wrong, but regardless, you'll get it somehow. And so we're going to focus on knowing your rights, self-advocacy in terms on how you can properly get accommodations. And in the light of everything, we also decided to add a section on hearing loss in online classrooms. And then we'll end off with a Q&A session. So we aren't going to go over the resources. That's just a simple reference guide to some of the things that we may talk about throughout the presentation. And it includes the contact information for both organizations. Okay, let's get started.
All righty. So knowing your rights. And we recognize that there are some similar aspects in both in-class and online format, such as knowing your rights. Even in an online format, it is important to know your accommodation and accessibility rights and making sure that before any conversation with the lecturer, professor, instructor, advisor, that you are well informed. A statement to remember is that the Ontario Human Rights Code guarantees the right to equal treatment in education without discrimination on the grounds of disability as a part of the protection for equal treatment in services. Education education providers have a duty to accommodate students with disability up to the point of undue hardship. Basically, to simplify this, it means that students have the right to ask for accommodations within reason, so that they will be able to receive the education that they need without being discriminated against. So when you're discussing accommodations in school, whether it's online or in class, please remember this and know that you are entitled to your accommodations. Now, I know that here we mentioned the Ontario Human Rights Code, but please know that every province, territory, wherever you are from, should have this as well. Thank you.
Yeah. So in post-secondary, it's just you. Gone are the itinerant teachers and the guidance counselors that may have helped you in high school. You are the only one that is able to advocate for yourself. I personally had a tough time because I didn't know how to self-advocate for myself. I was so used to other people doing it for me. So we wanted to give you some tips on how you can do that so that way you are confident from the start when you start school. So some of the things that we are going to cover are knowing what you can say to an instructor and how to say it, what you do and do not have to reveal about your hearing impairment, and how to properly detail accommodations to your instructor. Now, to just continue on to that, when a student applies for accommodations and goes through that entire process with the Accessibility Center, one of two things typically happens. Either the Accessibility Center will provide you with a letter that you can give to your instructor on the first day of class. This is the more not anonymous approach because right away the teacher will know you are the one that is in need of the accommodations, right? Or in my case, when I was in school, the Accessibility Center actually sends letters on your behalf to your instructors prior to the first day of classes, and they don't reveal any names. And usually in that letter, they do a quick highlight informing them about your accommodation, but they don't describe what disability you have or exactly what accommodations are needed.
Alrighty. So if you wish to remain anonymous, you can let the Accessibility Center know and they can arrange something on your behalf. Some people are very shy or uncertain about how they can identify or disclose that they have a disability, and that is okay. We are not here to tell you you have to do it. It is up to your personal preference. And you don't have to, by remaining anonymous, you are not talking to the instructor. The instructor will not know that you are one of the students that needs accommodations, especially since having a hearing loss is an invisible disability. However, if you do wish to speak to your instructor, regardless if you've given them an accommodation letter or not, here's something that we hope that you can do. So don't just hand your instructor the accommodation letter if you have one, or walk up to them and just say, just letting you know, I have a hearing loss. This is very generic and it doesn't really tell the instructor what you need. And we'll go over why we believe that you need to provide more information.
So the next thing to do is to make sure you highlight all of your needs and be specific. I would recommend maybe scheduling an office hour or in what might happen, an online meeting with your instructor. And during that meeting, you want to specify exactly what you need and why, just so that they understand what will happen if you don't get that accommodation. It just makes them a bit more understanding. So in this case, the more information is actually better.
So what do you say to your instructor? And just know that this is the chance to educate them on what you need. They have to deal with many students at a time. And unfortunately, depending on the institution themselves, they may be dealing with thousands and thousands of students, and you might be just a number to them. So they want to know who you are as a student and how they can help you make sure that your educational journey is accessible. So how does your hearing loss impact your ability in a classroom or online? And also with their hearing loss themselves, one person who is hard of hearing versus another person who's hard of hearing may have two very different experiences. So they may know some experiences from a previous student, but that previous student's accommodations may not work for you. So that is why it's very important to talk to them about that, and hopefully they will help you with what you need.
So what you do and do not have to reveal. This will vary depending on who you are and what your comfort level is on what you want to say to your instructor or to the Accessibility Center. But I'm a strong believer in that honesty is always the best policy. Like I said before, the more information that gets given, the better the chances of the other person understanding what you need and why. So I'm going to just quickly share an experience that I had. I had an instructor that loved to spend his time talking to the PowerPoint slide at the front of the class. His back was always to us. And I found that I missed a lot. One, because I was in a rather large lecture hall and there was a lot of echoing. And second, I couldn't read his lips. And because I wasn't that familiar with his voice, a lot of things did get lost in translation. So I had the choice to either suck it up and risk missing a lot of the lessons or talk to him. So I scheduled an office hour with him and I explained to him about my hearing loss. And I said, in order for me to get the best out of the lesson, you will have to face the classroom and me, right? And he actually did understand what I wanted and why once I explained it to him, and he was able to accommodate me in that sense. But what happens when a professor isn't accommodating?
Yes. So when there may be a rare occasion where a professor may not accommodate your needs, and it has happened, unfortunately, to a lot of my friends. It has happened to myself. It has happened to Karina. So this is where self-advocacy is really needs to happen in here. And I will say, as someone who's experienced it, it is not very easy. But how do you handle it? Who do you reach out to? And what your impact means for future students. So I had an experience where I was in third year of university, and I had a professor who adamantly, publicly denied my right to have accommodations in his classrooms. He didn't want to wear my FM system. He didn't want my note taker who sat beside me so I couldn't watch his screen type her notes. He said she had to handwrite her notes. He didn't want anyone using laptops in the classroom. And in the past, I've had professors where they didn't want laptops in the classroom, but they understood that I needed the laptop for the note taker, and they were like, that's totally fine. But this professor was still very adamant, no laptops, no microphones, no nothing. And he unfortunately humiliated me in class. It was very daunting. It was the moment where I felt like this is, that made me feel worthless. So what I did is right away, like immediately in the middle of class when he said no, I went to my accommodation advisor in tears, I may add. And I asked her, what can I do? This professor isn't accommodating. And she tried to email him on my behalf. And when I went to the next class, it still wasn't working. And that's when I knew I had to deal with the higher level. So I went to the dean of the university and I said, listen, this is what's going on. This is not right. And I also had a meeting with the Human Rights Services and again, told them the same thing. And it was a very long battle. I dropped out of a class, and it was unfortunate because it was one of the classes I really wanted to join, and I worked very hard to get into, but unfortunately my accommodations were most important and must be needed. So after all of that, the professor did send a letter of apology for realizing that what he did was wrong. And we made it a mandate that in his syllabus, he had to accommodate. Doesn't matter who the student was, he had to accommodate. And that was what my impact meant for future students. And I hope that today, if he is still an instructor, that he is following what he needs to do. Yeah. And just remember that we have a human right to get what we need for accommodations. And if it's not being followed, you also have a right to challenge them. Yeah.
So to just quickly recap what Laura said,
yes.
Professors have the right to accommodate you to the point of undue hardship. None of our accommodations that we ask for should be a hardship. So you should get those accommodations. And if a professor is stubborn about it, right, yes, you can either go to your accessibility center and see if they will intervene. Most times they do because well, that is their job. And then you want to maybe try again and see if it's just a matter of a lack of understanding on the professor's part. So explain why you need the accommodations, explain the severity of your hearing loss. Do not downplay it. This is the one time you should not downplay your hearing loss. You should make it as extra as possible, just so that that professor would get the point. And you want to make sure that you are doing your part in being as proactive as possible. So you're sitting in the front row of every class. You have a friend next to you that you can ask to for notes. But when you need more than that, like hopefully the professor can see that you are trying everything that you can do. Sometimes that works when you try to play on their sympathies. But unfortunately, in like Laura's case, you might have to look into other classes. It's unfortunate, but it does happen because you advocated really hard for yourself and the professor is not budging. They may realize the error of their actions after the fact, but that may be too late for you, especially when you want to take a certain class, right? But regardless, at the end of the day, you want to be taught by someone who wants you to excel and not to fail.
Yes. All right. So how do you properly detail your accommodations? This is again where you go and you connect with your accommodation advisor. They are also named as Student Accessibility Center, Accommodation Advisors. Some institutions have different names, but you should connect with them and they will write a document that lists your accommodations for your instructors to follow through. During this meeting that you have with your accommodation advisor, they will read your IEP that you will get from high school and any other documents like a audiogram, IEP, whatever you need that list your accommodations, and talk with them and say, you know, I need to have a note taker. I need to be in front of the class. I need to have PowerPoint slides ahead of time. And if this is your first time going to university, you may not know what accommodations you may have needed because maybe this is your first time being in a lecture hall. This is your first time experiencing this class. So if you find through the middle of the semester that you need new accommodations, you can absolutely go back to your accommodation advisor and let them know that this new occurrence has come, and they would definitely help you. So it's not a one-time thing. They are there for you 24/7 through your whole university or college career. And again, be specific. Yeah. So here is an email sample that I have created for you all. So this is what my accommodation advisor has helped me create the letter. So while they have the letter themselves that lists all of your accommodations, this is something where you can practice your self-advocacy and reach out to the professor yourself. So you could say, hi, my name is so-and-so. I am a first-year student in this program at this university. I am deaf and hard of hearing and will require a few accommodations from you to make my learning process in class more accessible for me. Attached, you will find my student accommodation form, that's the form that the university fills out, discussing what I need in class. And the next part is optional because this is up to you and your comfort and how you feel approaching your instructors. So you can ask them to make an appointment sometime before or after class to discuss your accommodations further. Now, I have been in school, university for 6+ years now, and I have emailed this to every single instructor of mine, and every single one of them have always reached out back to me. Hi, Laura, thank you for letting me know. Let me know what I can do to help you. And I felt very comfortable that they also wanted to put the effort, because please know that maybe some instructors may not know what a hearing loss is, and that's not their fault, but that's what you can do to help educate them. So I always booked a meeting with them, whether it was before or after class, and I looked at the syllabus and I said, you know, here's what my hearing loss is, here's my FM system, here's what I want you to do, and if you have any questions, let me know. I remembered so at Ryerson University, I did media production and we had a lot of audio classes. And that always made me nervous because with the whole hearing aspect. And I had very accommodating professors who made sure to caption everything, who made sure to provide me the extra mile that they needed to make sure that I was succeeding in class. So that's why I found that being a self-advocate and talking to your professors, there's always an advantage. It is scary, it's not easy, and I understand some people may be shy, but just know that by reaching out, it would definitely help you for the better. And there you go.
Okay, so before we talk about the topic of hearing loss in online classroom, Laura and I decided to have a mini Q&A session on the topic. So we will be asking all of you 3 questions. Share your answers in the Q&A box and we'll read them out loud. Are you ready for the first question?
Yes.
All
right.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Oh, good. So yeah, so how do you feel about the online format for classes with our new current situation?
Oh, oops.
Anybody? Well, I can tell you right now, as you guys know, I'm still in school at Queen's University, and I just found out that for the next semester that I'm doing, it's going to be online, and I'm kind of unsure about it because as much as I appreciate the accessibility aspect of it, there's all these new uncertainty that may happen, such as making sure I have a note taker with me at all times to caption the lecture, making sure technology works, making sure I can hear people when there's a group discussion. So there's all these aspects. And let me see. So a lot of people said, someone said, it's easy one-on-one, but no captions on Zoom and hearing fatigue. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that because we will be discussing hearing fatigue. That is another thing that I'm very worried about as a student that's experiencing it. So thank you for mentioning that. All right, anybody else? No? Let's do number 2.
Okay, so have you experienced any challenges? Now I can't seem to access the answers, so if Laura doesn't mind reading them out loud.
Yes, no worries. So, so it says basically they haven't really experienced challenges, but they were mentioning that they don't know what to expect and what programs and who to rely on with this new online format, and basically having a rough time learning through the online process. So there you go. Let's do number 3.
Okay.
And then basically, oops, sorry, I was going ahead of myself. And how are you overcoming these challenges? So again, communication is extremely important, overcoming these challenges. Again, this is where self-advocacy comes in and you talk to your instructor of the class. They too are learning as well. I know my current professors have never used Zoom before, so they are learning right alongside as we are, and they appreciate any feedback that we give them in terms of making sure that their class is accessible. All righty. Let me see if anyone else. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
We can move on.
So how to find out what accommodations you need for an online classroom. My best bet would be to practice with the platform beforehand with someone to become a bit more familiar with the settings it provides. So for example, find out if you are using Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or whatever online platform there is now out there. There's quite a few. Does it have a captioning feature inbuilt into it? If yes, how accurate is it? So maybe have a friend to talk to you while you are on the platform just to test out the closed captioning. How is the video quality? And can you connect your assistive listening device? So for example, an FM system or a Roger pen to the computer for a better sound quality.
Yes. So tips for the presenter. So the presenter can include the host, they can include your teacher, they can include if you have any online presentations that students need to present. Reach out to them beforehand and let them know about your accessible needs. Have the presenter be on video. This is very best for lip reading. And when they are on video, make sure that they have optimal lighting. Make sure that they face a light source so that's easier to read their lips. Make sure that they're not facing, their back is behind a window, because that could also alter the way their face looks on screen. And you can ask for a transcript and recording of the lecture to refer to afterwards if you need to, especially if you're facing any technical difficulties. And another way that you can reach out to the moderator, that could be via email, that could be via, the chat box. I know, for example, on Zoom, there is a private chat box where you can talk to just yourself and the moderator, so the rest of your classmates don't see your messages. I know I have unfortunately reached out to my moderator and the whole class saw it, and it was a little embarrassing at first, but then I just let it right away, because you know what? I'm someone that needs an accessibility, and if they can't understand that, then that's something that I can educate them on. So there you go.
So how to improve the online learning environment. Take advantage of the chat feature. Have students type in their questions rather than vocalize them. This is useful even for today's presentation. I find that people with hearing loss, like especially myself, I have a lot of trouble trying to differentiate one voice from the next. So to save all of that, I would rather just hear the voice of the host or the instructor rather than multiple voices of students. The next one would be to have the instructor provide a detailed agenda before each lecture. This would be good to just follow along and to keep track of what topic to expect next. And the next is, I'm guilty of this, have the instructor speak slower, just so that the captions will be more accurate and that the presenter is easier to understand.
I do. Sorry, someone told me I have a jingling bracelet, and I do, but I'm just gonna quickly remove that. Thank you for bringing that up. Hopefully that would be better now. Sometimes I talk with my hands, so I understand that can be infuriating. Thank you for advocating. Alrighty, so type of challenges to expect. We just experienced one right now with my bracelet. But you can face many different technical difficulties, and that can include limited access to captioning. So whether captioning is available at all, or the how accurate it is, as Karina mentioned, they may not pick up everything, or the wording may be off. Camera views, a lot of people like to turn off their mic when they are talking, and this depends on their own personal comfort viewing the camera. I know that I personally found that hard for me because I also rely on lip reading, and the sound is just not good enough for me to understand them, so I find that very challenging. Also lighting, like I said, you don't want to have your back behind a window because of the whole face reading, and also video quality. And this could be challenging for anyone, whether they're hard of hearing or not. I know my classmates have experienced very hard video quality because they live in the middle of nowhere and the internet has been challenging for them. So I know that could be something very challenging that maybe we can't control as well. But that's where you can talk to an instructor and see how they can better help you if you missed anything in the class. And there you go.
Okay. So another challenge to expect is something that I hear from a lot of people is called listening fatigue. So essentially it's just when you put a lot of energy into hearing and it drains you after a prolonged period of time. So this is a common problem when doing online classrooms, only because there's multiple people online, you have limited access to lip reading. So you might also end up with getting a bit of a headache because you're squinting to try and see the lips of the host. And also while you're doing that, you're straining to hear what everybody else is saying. And another thing is background noise. So our computer mics pick up a lot of background noise, so that interferes with the voice of the instructor or the voice of whoever is speaking online. And trying to differentiate between the background noise and the voice of the instructor can be hard. So it's very common that after maybe a 2 to 3 hour online lecture, you're left feeling quite exhausted.
All right, so another type of challenges that you can expect is lack of captioning. Like we mentioned before, depending on where you are on, whether it's Zoom, Google Meets, or any other kind of format, the lack of captioning can be incredibly hard for us, especially when we rely so much on it. And if we don't have lack of captioning, that's where the listening fatigue comes in, because you're trying so hard to hear. I am someone who experiences a lot of listening fatigue, and that is a worry of that could be a challenge that I am facing right now with my future online classes, is how do I deal with that, and what do I do when I do have listening fatigue? So hopefully it won't be as hard as I don't want it to be. But yeah, so in terms of lack of captioning on video content, there are some circumstances where professors or instructors like to share YouTube videos or pre-recorded videos. And if they're not captioned and students are expected to watch it and make notes on it, this can be challenging, like we mentioned. This is where, again, self-advocacy comes in, and you can reach out to your professor and ask them if they can provide a transcript, or if they can send the video to a captionist at the Accessibility Center. I have done that myself, and maybe they can help you out as well. And if the students who are required to have an ASL interpreter or an access note taker in their class, it is especially important for them to be recognized by your professors. So letting your professor know that, hey, if you see this name on the screen, this is for me, they are here to help me out. And that would be something that they can do for you. So this is an additional requirement which means that, that you have to reach out for and accommodate yourself on, and that you can get help for the Zoom classes. So yeah.
Okay, and well, that concludes our second webinar. Are there any questions? Laura, can you also read them out loud?
Yes. Yes, I'm looking now. So if there's any questions that you guys have, you can please let me know. So let me and Karina know. But like I said, with the future that's going on, there's a lot of online classes that's going to be happening. It's new for everyone. So as long as you have the patience to understand that, that would be amazing. But it's also not the time for you to stand quiet, because this is where a professor or instructor would like to know how you can help each other and how they can accommodate you. So I know that's what I've been doing. It's definitely an extra step for us, and it's definitely challenging that we have to do this, but that's what makes us great, because I think that we are all great educators, and we can be the best that we can be to help others. So yeah, so basically what the comments are saying is going back to online learning, so asking for more help, and asking for more help. And yeah, someone asked, is your contact information available on voice or contact? I think our contact information may be available in the resource slides, but if not, please let us know. And yeah, outside of this webinar, we are more than welcome to help you guys out if you ever experience anything in the future and forgot a question. That's what we're here for. And yeah.
Yeah, you're more than free to email us afterwards. The contact information is at the end of the slide in the resource section, like Laura said.
Beautiful. That is amazing. Yeah. And yeah. Okay. Oh yes, and we also have many great sources. So we have the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association Young Adult Network on Facebook. They have a lot of information there as well, such as contact information and other additional stuff that we mentioned through this PowerPoint. And we also have the Voice Teen Outreach Program that Karina and I run. And that would be, and there's your information there as well. So there you go.
Okay.
And the same with the social media pages for chat. I don't know if Karina has that.
Right here.
There you go. All right, I got another Q&A. Let me just make sure. Oh, thank you. All right. They want to thank us. So yeah, I hope that this has been a great webinar series for you. I know we threw a lot of information there for you. And please know that we understand the hardships that we are going through. And we hope that this can just help you, step out of your bubble a bit. We've been there, we're right there with you. And we know that it's a challenging thing for all of us. And you can do it. You can do it. And you can be the self-advocate you can be, and you're here for us. One question said, do you have some bilingual program for deaf and hard of hearing at schools? Would you mind further clarifying the question? I think this was sent by Andrea. I don't know if you mean like programs, if you're asking for
I think it honestly varies at the school that you choose.
Yes. Oh yes, someone asked, do any of you have experience with CART and how it works? So this is the, I forgot the long term, but I know it's the real-time captioning. Correct me if I'm wrong with this. I currently am experiencing my classes with CART. And basically what it is right now on an online format, I have a note taker that is also invited into the Zoom classes, and she sends me a link where she is typing verbatim what the professor or speaker is saying. And how I have my screen up is I have like the speaker, like the Zoom, and then I have the link where it has the slides, and that's how I'm able to follow through the instructions, especially because Zoom doesn't really have the captioning unless the moderator sets up the captioning. But I personally find that having Kite was extremely easy, accessible, and if that's something that you can get for your school, that would be amazing. And the note taker itself, again, this varies with different institutions, but my note taker is actually from the States, and she Skypes in or uses the Zoom link. So it's really, really accessible with whoever they can get for you. And again, this is also something that the institutions can provide, but they provide that for me. So it's not something that I have to use out of pocket, but I'm not sure what other universities say. And I know that, so Andrea was saying learning Spanish at high school is a school. Yeah, it depends on each institution. If you look at the programs that they may have Spanish and bilingual programs for you. It's just all a matter of researching what universities or colleges are available for that. Alrighty. If anyone has any other questions, let us know. Alrighty. Thank you for sharing your thanks. You're welcome. And yeah, we have one more Q&A. Oh, beautiful. No problem, Andrea. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. For those that are going to school in the fall, good luck. And we have to wrap up the presentation.
Yes, we are.
I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank both Karina and Laura for putting together this wonderful webinar for our attendees. On behalf of the Young Adults Network, I thank you very much for that. If you have any other questions, please feel free to use the Q&A box. We'll be here for a little bit while longer. And if not, thank you for joining us today.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.